I welcome you to Pakistan, your second home. You've been here before. Your last trip was a resounding success, and this trip will be remembered for a long time. Because today, you've come to Pakistan after having chaired a special session of the General Assembly. Unusual times, lingering COVID-19 pandemic in New York, bombardment in Gaza, innocent people being killed and maimed, the Security Council failing to reach a consensus in 4 consecutive meetings, and the international community, the OIC, the Arab group, and the non-aligned movement collectively looking towards you to play a role, a leadership role, to protect innocent civilians and to save and uphold the credibility of the UN system. Mr. President, you did that. We are proud of you. And I'm not saying this as the Foreign Minister of Pakistan. I speak on behalf of OIC, and my country is one of the founding members of OIC. So we are thankful to you for the leadership that you provided. When the President decided to convene this special session, he was of the view that we'll start at 10 and we'll close at 1. He had no idea what was waiting. 103 registrations came, and he realized it's not possible to wrap it up in 3 hours. It would not be possible to wrap it up in 12 hours. So he extended the session, and there was a 2-day session. But the significance of this special session was that while in the midst of the debate, when we were meeting in the trusteeship hall, the news came in of a ceasefire. And the objective that has taken me and other foreign ministers to New York, ladies and gentlemen, was achieved. And the idea was cessation of hostilities, and thanks to your intervention and your leadership, we achieved that. And another unusual step of a tall man in intellect, the President. He sets new precedents and makes a presidential statement. Normally they don't, but you did. Normally there's no podium set up by the UN for foreign ministers like myself to go and address the press at the UN, at the General Assembly. He set a new precedent, and I was the first foreign minister to avail that opportunity. Thank you for doing so. I also had the pleasure of meeting, besides the President, the Secretary General of the UN. He also made an opening statement on this evolving crisis, and I must thank him for his contribution. What we expect, Mr. President, from you and the Secretary General is to continue to play that leadership role and initiate the peace process. What we've achieved is the first milestone. But what we need, and the nation and the Ummah is looking up to, is a revival of the peace process. Because this is a simmering issue. The fire has not yet been fully extinguished. Please play your role to extinguish the fires. And the only way this fire will be extinguished is through dialogue, an understanding of peaceful coexistence, and a two-state solution in accordance with the UN Security Council resolutions. And to ensure, play your role to ensure that timely humanitarian assistance is provided to the Palestinians and those affected in this, under this aggression. I intend to get in touch with the Egyptian Foreign Minister, and I also want to acknowledge the constructive role played by Egypt, the leadership, President Sisi, and yesterday, last night, Prime Minister Imran Khan had a very good conversation with President Sisi. They discussed the situation and what needs to be done in the days ahead. I had the opportunity of not hosting the President, but taking advantage of his presence in Islamabad, I briefed the President on the dire situation in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And I drew his attention and the attention of the Secretary General of the similarities between the Palestinian situation and the Jammu and Kashmir situation. What are they talking about? Self-determination. What are the Palestinians demanding? Protect us from demographic restructuring. What are they saying? Human rights are being violated, international law is being violated. You made us promises. They're broken promises. Innocent people are being killed. Help us, protect us. Electricity, water supplies have been affected. Hospitals have been bombed. Red Cross has been targeted. So, play your role and protect us. What are people in Jammu and Kashmir saying? Palestinians are saying, Security Council, we are on the agenda. We are an agenda item for over 7 decades. The President, what are the Kashmiris saying? We are on the agenda of the Security Council for over 7 decades. Pay attention. These are international obligations. UN must play that role of responsibility that is due. I also had the opportunity to brief the President on the evolving situation in Afghanistan and the role Pakistan has played in facilitating the peace process and pushing the reconciliation process forward. I briefed him on a very useful trilateral meeting between Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Turkey that was convened in Istanbul. And Pakistan is supportive of the Istanbul process and the international conference that should, in my view, take place at the earliest in Istanbul. We will do whatever we can to play our role. And today, I was pleased, and I want the nation of Pakistan to know that. When I met the Secretary General, he said, there is a paradigm shift. He said that today, the international community is looking at Pakistan not as part of the problem. The international community is looking at Pakistan as part of the solution. And that is the dramatic shift that has taken place in the last I would say, couple of years. And I must give credit to the leadership of Prime Minister Imran Khan for that. I also briefed him on Pakistan's point of view on the UN reform and the Security Council reform. And also the initiative of the Prime Minister for debt restructuring, suspension of debt, to enable the developing world to have resources to invest in strengthening their fragile healthcare structure. Mr. President, thank you. Thank you for your time. And we always look forward to your coming to Pakistan. You are a friend of Pakistan. And in a humble way, today, after this function, in an investiture ceremony, we will be acknowledging that and recognizing your services and the services of the UN system. Thank you, sir.
And may I now request the Honorable President of the General Assembly of the United Nations, Mr. Bozkir, for his remarks, please.
Thank you so much, Foreign Minister, for the kind words. Also, representing Pakistan in the world in a very good way. You are a well-known figure in the world platform, and I'm a witness that in this last meeting for Palestine, your leadership was very much important. We started with a dinner before the meeting, and you have invited the ministers to a meeting, and I think that was the crucial point, and where a decisive mood among ministers was established. And so the meeting really went smoothly and to the point and with a success. And I appreciate your leadership in that respect. Of course, in politics, sometimes 5 years is too short and sometimes 2 days is too long. In this, we captured the momentum. We captured the eye of the storm. And when the political structure is ready for something, nothing can stop it. The wave of the politics can solve every problem. Here, if the ministers didn't come to New York and connected virtually, we wouldn't have got the result. But everybody saw the minister. One flew 40 hours, one flew 30 hours, one flew 20 hours. They all took the burden to come there, and this is politics, and which was for the result. On my behalf, as the President of the General Assembly, I'm impartial. I have a duty to be impartial. But, of course, impartiality can be defined also. For a case like Palestine, I don't think any PGA can stay impartial. So my definition is to help the people, to solve problems, to be fair and just, and that's, I think, impartiality. So I think the constitution in the Palestinian issue is a swift return to negotiations, as the minister also mentioned, with the goal of ending occupation, addressing all the final status, including the status of Jerusalem, and achieving two independent, sovereign, viable states, Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and security, and mutual recognition within recognized borders on the basis of pre-1967 lines, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states. I started saying that this is the constitution of the negotiations. This is the bottom line. Without this, we can't achieve. So I think the first step was this meeting. Ceasefire was the result. It cannot be the end. So from here, we must use this political wind to also continue using our strength in the General Assembly to force the Security Council and also to force the Secretary General, which has an obligation to also look to the Security Council's success stories and the General Assembly's success stories. If there is one success story, it's enough. If there's two success stories, even better than enough. So I think we have a lot to do, but we also have a big room for maneuver. Minister mentioned and also compared the two important things. I think the two problems are the same age, Palestine and Jammu and Kashmir. And I fully agree that this is the case. But unfortunately, the Palestinian issue has more wind behind it, political wind behind it. And the Jammu and Kashmir issue doesn't have the same enlarged political wind behind it. So I think it is the duty, especially Pakistan, to bring this to the United Nations platform more strongly. And the PGA only needs an application from a group of countries, and it can be held as a meeting there. But of course, as an impartial President of the General Assembly, I must also reiterate that the United Nations position on Jammu and Kashmir is governed by the United Nations Charter and applicable Security Council resolutions. India and Pakistan's similar agreement on 1972, which states that the final status of Jammu and Kashmir is to be settled by peaceful means in accordance with the UN Charter, and this is, I think, very important that we must all remember. I think both parties, all parties, must refrain from taking steps that could affect the status of Jammu and Kashmir. This is I think the very important part of how we look at the case. Of course, concerning Afghanistan, as I mentioned in the meeting today, there are many countries in the world. All countries think they are the most important country in the world. And if you look from their perspective, it is true. But some countries are more important. Pakistan is important. Afghanistan is important. Afghanistan, if we can solve the Afghanistan issue, it cannot be limited to Afghanistan. It will have a regional effect, it will have a worldwide effect. So I think what Pakistan is doing, together with Turkey and Afghanistan, is very important. If we don't do it now, then when we come back at a later stage, we will find a different picture. It will be more complicated, more difficult to solve. In diplomacy, in politics, it's always like that. If you miss an opportunity and you decide to come back later, you will find that it is looking different. So I think it is timely, and we appreciate your efforts. We hope that you will come with a success story, and everybody, of course, will applaud that. Of course, Pakistan is my second home in a way. I think not everybody in the world can understand why Pakistan loves Turkey and Turkey loves Pakistan. This is not something economic or built on financial reasons. It's from the heart. It just came out, and we lived for decades like that. So as a president from Turkey, I have an obligation, I thought I had an obligation to come before taking office and also while I'm the president to visit this beautiful country. And I just, my mask is today green and my tie is green just to, I shouldn't let it go unrecognized. And also I'm really honored for tonight's ceremony, which I will accept it on behalf of the United Nations, and it is showing that United Nations and Pakistan are working together. Pakistan is honoring the United Nations, and through the President of the General Assembly, I think it's a very important message that will be given, and it will be an honor which I will carry throughout my life. I thank the government and also the President for choosing me for that honor. Of course, the Prime Minister's charisma and widespread sympathy in the world is important for Pakistan. I think what he's doing with the tree plantation programs, putting into effect the difficulties countries are facing vis-à-vis the debt issues, and also dealing with COVID in this country comparatively much better than many other countries is remarkable. And I think reaching 10 billion trees in some years' time is a very ambitious looking but very correct project. Why Islamabad is so green and why Islamabad is impressing everybody coming here is because these type of decisions are taken. And we have the Pakistani permanent representative, Ambassador Minur Akram, as the president of the ECOSOC. He's doing a great job there. And many of these issues are dealt in the ECOSOC platforms. And he has finalizing his tenure with a lot of important issues. And one is this one. I think the problem is for some countries not debt postponement, but debt elimination completely. If a country cannot pay, what's the use of postponing it? So we will have an LLDC SITS conference with the ECOSOC president before the summer. We will have one for youth, one for the middle-income countries. So these are all, I think, and we will be very happy to see Minister yourself or the Prime Minister coming to New York to honor us and give some political perspective to these important issues. Thank you so much for giving this possibility, and I wish you all the best, yourself and to Pakistan as a whole. Long live Pakistan.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We can now take some questions. I would request if you could kindly introduce yourself, your news outlet, and also indicate whom your question is addressed to. Adil Bashir.
My name is Adil Bashir and representing Rose News Network. I have a question from Mr. President, UNGA, High Excellency Volkan Bozkir. How does UN see the Kashmir dispute in line with relevant UN resolutions?
Sorry.
How does UN see the Kashmir dispute in line with relevant UN resolutions?
Well, I think I explained the UN position in that respect. And I think what I have said is very clear. As an impartial President of the General Assembly, wait until I come back after the 15th of September.
Zarghun.
Thank you, sir. My question is addressed to both of the dignitaries. First to the Foreign Minister. Sir, no doubt Israel has committed brazen human rights violation, and Mr. Netanyahu stands an established war criminal. Does Pakistan as well as Turkey intend to approach the International Court of Justice? Thank you.
To begin with, let me draw your attention to a very important meeting taking place in Geneva right now, the Human Rights Council. Pakistan and Pakistan's ambassador to Geneva, Ambassador Khalil Hashmi, through the OIC, moved a resolution, and a special session is being convened which will discuss human rights violations violation of international law, and war crimes, and genocide, ethnic cleansing. All this would be under discussion and under debate. I am confident that Western democracies that believe in human rights will stand up and be counted. And don't just tell us what human rights are. They should actually take concrete steps today. And one of the concrete steps can be to draw the attention of ICC on the human rights violations and the war crimes that are taking place in Gaza and the West Bank, and what happened when a holy site respected by all three religions, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, was attacked on the 27th of Ramadan, the holiest nights for any Muslim. I'm sure they are cognizant of these developments, and they will take action. I'm also told that there is some proceeding already initiated in the ICC. I do not have the details, but there is something going on over there. Let's see what the Human Rights Council concludes today, and we can take it from there.
Minister was reading my talking points, so I don't have anything to add to that. I fully agree with what he said.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Anas Malik from Capital TV. My question is addressed to the visiting dignitary. Sir, we've got two persistent issues at the General Assembly.
Yes, sir.
Sir, here. Excellency.
Right there.
Okay, so my question is
So,
related.
sorry.
No worries.
I was thinking that you were waving hand to these beautiful ladies. So
I'd not want to do that. I'd not want to do that right now. Coming back, sir, my question is for you. We've got two persistent issues on the General Assembly agenda. First being the India-Pakistan question, the Kashmir issue. Second being the Israel-Palestine question, the Palestine issue. We've recently seen that there were attempts to put off the India-Pakistan question off the agenda of the General Assembly. What would you, as the President of the General Assembly, do to either scuttle, stall, or would you want it to be taken off the agenda, number one? Number two, what is the way forward precisely on the issue of Kashmir and on the issue of Palestine? As the President of the General Assembly, what would be your role? Thank you.
Well, I think I tried to describe what the General Assembly can do and what the General Assembly cannot do. The problem is, there is a belief that if things do not develop positively or as a result in the Security Council, then the General Assembly has a role to play, which I don't think it is the case. The Palestinian meeting was held not because the Security Council was not able to come with a decision, but we had two opportunities. One was the emergency session, which it is not closed, it is suspended, and each time you can open it from where it stopped. Or, like we did, we used the Middle East agenda item and we inserted into that. So it needed the two groups' application to me, and I decided to have a meeting. So the important thing is to convene a General Assembly when there's not a big political support behind it, will be counter-effective. That was what I was saying. If for the Kashmir issue there is a support and I can see it, then I will do it. But it shouldn't be harming the issue by having an unsuccessful meeting. So I think the first work should be done with countries, like in the Palestinian case was the IOC and the African group, and then the NAM joined it. So we saw the clear picture, and without a resolution, with just a appeal to peace declaration from me, and with the statements, we reached a result. But if we have a meeting by the request of, let's say, Pakistan, and then we don't have the support there, it will be bad. So what I'm saying is, first, it must come to me with a wind, and then I deliver. If you want the wind to be blown by me, I don't have that authority.
Thank you very
मैं
much.
इसमें एक इजाफा करना चाहूँगा और with your permission, Mr. President, I like to utter a few sentences in Urdu.
You're the host. You can do whatever you want. You can talk. I'm the guest. The guest is in the hands of the host.
देखिए अर्ज ये है कि मसला कश्मीर एक हकीकत है, कोई उसको झुटलाना चाहे तो झुटला नहीं सकता। सलामती काउंसिल के एजेंडे पे है, कोई मिटाना चाहे तो मिटा नहीं सकता। जबर हो रहा है, कोई आंख चुराना चाहे तो चुरा नहीं सकता। और मैंने ममासलत जोड़ दी है फलस्तीन की और कश्मीर की। पाकिस्तान ने अपने कायद आज़म मोहम्मद अली जिन्नाह के अफकार को सामने रखते हुए, उनकी बसीरत को सामने रखते हुए मसला फ़लस्तीन पर एक ठोस फैसला किया और तसलसल से किया। मैं सलाम और खराज तहसीन पेश करना चाहता हूं पाकिस्तान की नेशनल असेंबली को और पाकिस्तान की सेनेट को, जिन्होंने इस पर मुत्तफिका करारदादें पेश की। उन करारदादों की ताकत के बलबूते पर मैंने ये मसला वहां सेक्रेटरी जनरल के साथ और सदर के साथ उठाया और मैंने कहा कि आप देखें, सितम ज़रीफी तो देखें कि मुमासलत तो देखें। चिंगारी वहां भी है, चिंगारी वहां भी है। अगर उस चिंगारी को आप नहीं बुझाएंगे तो मशरिक़ वुस्ता भड़क जाएगा, और अगर मकबूजा कश्मीर की चिंगारी से आंख चुराएंगे तो बर्रे सगीर पुरअमन नहीं रहेगा। अब ये इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी की जिम्मेदारी है कि अपनी जिम्मेदारी निभाए। मैंने जोड़ दिया है। मैं रिकॉर्ड पे कहना चाहता हूं कि मैंने 13 खत लिखे हैं, एंड करेक्ट मी इफ आई एम रॉन्ग, 13 है, 13 फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी फरमा रहे हैं 13। मैंने 13 खत लिखे हैं सदर जनरल असेंबली को, सलामती काउंसिल के सदर को, और जिसमें मैंने पाकिस्तान का मुकम्मल मुकदमा पेश किया है। और आपने कहा, अभी आपने सुना कि सदर ने कहा कि ये एक डिस्प्यूट है जिसके स्टेटस को कायम रहना चाहिए तावक्ते फैसला। हिंदुस्तान ने 5 अगस्त के बाद उस स्टेटस को, उस पर ज़र्ब लगाई है और पाकिस्तान ने एहतजाज रिकॉर्ड करवाया है। कुछ आवाजें सुनी गई, कुछ मसलतन खामोश रहे, लेकिन मत भूलिए कि 3 नशिस्तें सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल को बादल नाखास्ता इस पर करनी पड़ी, और चाहे एनी अदर आइटम ऑन द एजेंडा की बुनियाद पर ही सही, वो नफी हो गई जो हिंदुस्तान प्रचार करता था कि यह हमारा अंदरूनी मामला है। दुनिया ने एतराफ कर दिया और जनाब सदर उस बात का इआदा कर रहे हैं कि ये एक ऐसा मसला है जो हल तलब है और उसकी निशानदेही यूएन चार्टर कर रहा है और सलामती काउंसिल की करारदादें कर रही हैं। अब हमें बहसियत कौम के इस पर यकजहती का मुजाहरा भी करना है और अपनी आंखें और कान खुले रखने हैं और मौके की तलाश में रहना है। और मैं पाकिस्तान की कौम को यह अर्ज करना चाहता हूं, मैं उस मौके की तलाश में हूं। हिंदुस्तान ज़र्ब लगाए और हम खामोश रहें, ये हो नहीं सकता।
I will come back to answer the last question because it will take more time. But in principle, you're talking about the Security Council reform. And of course, it is one of the most lively processes going on. There are a group of countries who has different opinions, fast track, slow track, no engine, car, moving, not moving. So, but the whole process is lively. And I think it gives the opportunity to countries to express their views in these platforms. And they register it so that in later stages, no harm will come to their vision. So what we are doing is, this year we also had IGN talks. I appointed two co-chairs. They came out with a paper, and we will, in June, decide to move it to the next session. But in principle, the blame is on the Security Council. And I think this is wrong. I think we can solve the problem by increasing the capacity of the General Assembly. If we can bring the General Assembly into the picture with 193 countries as members, with the same spirit of the Palestinian meeting, then there will be a balance between the three organs, General Assembly, Security Council, and the Secretary General. Secretary General is an appointed person, and it has to obey, it has to fulfill the decisions of the General Assembly and the Security Council. So actually this is a reform. But this mentality, just saying that, okay, I don't have a duty because Security Council must solve it, and they cannot, so thank you very much, I'm happy with my... This doesn't work like that. The General Assembly must take its responsibility, and if it's not going on well there, then makes an announcement that I will do it if you don't do it. Then you will have the balance. That is the reform. Otherwise, that reform will go, the end you know. So it will be a good practice of exchanging views. It will continue for another decade.